and the Minister. Welcome everyone to the meeting that we are starting now. It's already 3 minutes past 1. We're supposed to start at 1. Minister, you are welcome to the Select Committee on Petition and Executive Undertakings, as we invited you today to give us a progress report on the petition that was raised on the 11th of March 2021 to the Deputy President, and also for the session of the 16th March 2021 by the Deputy Minister pertaining to restructuring of Eskom and the SAA employees. I want to hand over to you, Minister, not to waste more time, that you can give us that report. I will give you just 10 minutes that after that the members can engage if there's anything that they want to follow. Thank you. Over to you.
Well, once again, good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon, honorable members. I think you have our written responses, am I right, before you?
Yes.
So I don't really want to repeat what is there, but perhaps add a few things to each of the points very quickly, and then we can get into the Q&A. The first one is in relation to headcount reduction, and it should be read with the second one, which is about investing in critical skills. So as the answer points out, there has been a decrease in numbers through attrition, but also through some of the VSPs that were granted in 2018, 2019. But at the same time, once the new management team began to make its assessment, it found, as you can see from the second response to the second question, that there was a critical shortage of the categories that you see there, including artisans, engineering trainees, plant operators, and so on. So one of the challenges that we were presented with is the fact that somewhere in the middle of the period between 2010 and 2020, Eskom management decided to, for example, stop awarding bursaries. So you had no people coming up into the pipeline. The Eskom Academy was allowed to get into disuse, and that is currently being reactivated, so that, for example, power station managers or key operators within power stations go for regular upgrading courses, and that is where the experienced former employees of Eskom, together with universities and so on, are being deployed currently. Moving over to the third one, in relation to efficiencies at Medupi and Kusile. I mean, as you're aware, both these plants had serious problems in relation to design, in relation to construction, and in relation to some of the equipment that was installed. For example, there's a particular net that should last 3 years that currently lasts between 6 and 12 months. So these defects are currently being corrected, and it takes a few months per unit to undertake that. It's moving on schedule, but some of them have other problems at an operational level, which decreases the total effectiveness as far as providing megawatts to the system is concerned. You might have heard about, well, firstly, as far as Kusile is concerned, there are 2 units that are still under construction. One of it will become available as the current planning goes in 2023, the second one in 2024. But there was a mishap, I think 2 days ago at Kusile 1. You might have seen the pictures, and that means that Kusile 1 had to be shut down in order that an assessment can be made on the nature of the damage, but also how long it would take to cure the problem. So the same issues in relation to design apply both to Medupi and Kusile as well. So they're not as optimal in their performance as was expected. And so they don't give you, or the country, the kind of megawatts that are actually required, but there are these plans in place. In terms of IPPs, I think you've heard, as the public has heard, the announcements made by the president on the 25th of July in relation to, let's call it an energy security plan for the country, and opening up bid windows, increasing their quantity, speeding up processing of applications, removing red tape as much as possible. All of those areas are part of 10 work streams that have been created with all of the relevant role players in order to cut down the amount of time that is taken, for example, for an environmental impact study or certain types of licenses being issued. And in other instances, the need for licenses have been removed completely. So this is moving as fast as one can imagine at this particular point in time. And there's a lot of good work that is going on, but nonetheless, that doesn't mean that the investment that is attracted in this area is going to happen overnight. In South Africa, we still take somewhere between 15 and 18 months from approval to actual delivery. The second set of issues, Chair, is in relation to the capacity and the existence of the transmission grid. In other words, you can put up an IPP plant, it can have a capacity, for example, of 300 megawatts, but if the transmission grid hasn't reached that part of the country, and a lot of investment is required to extend the grid in the years to come, then it means that the megawatts produced by that investment don't get connected. However, to overcome that problem, Eskom, you might have heard, has made land available around the power stations that exist at the moment, which land is not utilized. And currently about 32 parcels of this land have been put up for auction. The first, I think, 16 or so have already been awarded. The first 4 of that number had the contract signed in the last 10 days. And what this means is that you will get public land use, that is land use, the land that is owned by Eskom, but private investment in IPPs on that land, but it avoids the problem of connectivity to the grid, because the land is that is being used is right next to the current grid that exists for the power station itself. So in time, in the next 12 months, we'll see that bearing fruit, and that process is a much easier process to deal with as far as regulatory concerns, being in a position to inhibit the speed with which those things can in fact be implemented. Then we come to what I call commitments made by the Deputy Minister in relation to acts of criminality, and what is being done in this regard. Of course, in this particular area, we've said publicly before that in the Mpumalanga context and in the areas around the power stations, there are various types of syndicates that are operating, and we call them different types of mafias, if you like. So there are those that supply the wrong quality of coal or mixed qualities of coal, which then have a very damaging effect on the boiling, which have a damaging effect on the boilers of the power stations. Secondly, there's a whole lot of schemes to make money out of the non-delivery of fuel oil. And as at some of the power stations, you might be aware, such as Tutuka, some of the suppliers have been caught red-handed. There's also corruption between outsiders and insiders in terms of the types of parts that are purchased. Some of them are counterfeit, some of them are poor quality. They're not the ones that are produced by the original equipment manufacturers. And all of that then causes problems in terms of breakdowns, repeated needs for maintenance, and so on. So all of that needs to be taken into account as far as acts of criminality are concerned. But finally, it depends, all of this depends upon the capacity of law enforcement agencies to detect the problems, to identify the individuals involved, either outside or inside of Eskom, and to bring them to book. Some of these numbers are available, although they might not be public, but in some cases, over about 1,200 to 1,500 cases have been opened of malfeasance of one kind or another in respect of some of the areas that I've outlined. And some of them are under investigation, some of them have gone to court, but more of the people involved need to appear in court, and where there is adequate evidence, they must be locked up, to put it very simply, so that this kind of behavior is discouraged. There were problems raised in relation to KwaZulu-Natal. So here, whenever problems arise, Eskom has a fairly good set of people in the distribution area in all of the provinces. And in our experience, they've been fairly responsive to complaints that they've received, and where it is possible, they will assist municipalities, they will enter into medium to long-term agreements with municipalities, the so-called partnership approach, and where possible and required, they will also assist municipalities in terms of replacing infrastructure or looking after the infrastructure if they are requested to actually do so. So that's in response to what happens within localities. We then move on to question 25, as it pertains to SAA. Now, the heading says SAA, but the question is about Alexco. So I'll treat it as a question in relation to Alexco. What are the specific interventions? Alexco, Chair, is one of the most dysfunctional of the SOEs that we have had to deal with, largely, firstly, because of the neglect, secondly, of the very special arrangement where Alexco, the company, is in a relationship with the Richtersveld community, and that relationship is dictated to by a court decision that was arrived at some time ago. And currently, we have an interim board in place. We have an interim CEO in place. We are attempting through them to identify what a roadmap might look like. But what's important to know is that in the adjoining areas, both on the land and in the sea, big companies that have been operating have given up exploring in those areas. Or if Alexco wishes to undertake exploration, it then requires capital to be able to do so, and it doesn't have its own capital, and nor does government have capital as well. So where are we at the moment? Where we are at the moment is to reconfigure the way in which some minimum of activity begins to take place at Eskom. Secondly, in relation to previous theft of diamonds and so on, there's an SIU investigation that is currently underway, and that will then result in whoever was involved being prosecuted or charged for what they had actually done in that period. Thirdly, the contact with the trader that historically sold the diamonds that were produced or found, either alluvial diamonds or diamonds from the land, and might have been involved in the malfeasance scheme as well. That contract has been terminated. So it'll still take us another 2 or 3 months to actually map out the kind of direction we need to take. The next page, again, it says question 25, but reference is made to SAA, but the question is really about Denel. So on what you have on paper are the various steps that we've actually taken in relation to, firstly, ensuring that funds that were available in the Denel Medical Benefit Trust have finally, as a result of a court order, been made available to Denel to the tune of 990 million rands. Those funds were used to pay arrears salaries and provide some cash for operations, although minimally. Secondly, you would be aware that in the medium-term budget policy statement, the Minister of Finance, as a result of a cabinet decision, has made funds available to the tune of 3.4 billion rands to act as operating capital. Thirdly, there's a much better relationship now cultivated between the chairpersons of Armsco and Denel. So many of the issues that they've had in the past are being resolved. And then fourthly, there is a substantial order book that's available where once cash is made available, that process of production can actually commence. And fifthly, the Chief Restructuring Officer is now in a position to reorganize Denel for the purposes of more efficient and more effective operations within Denel itself. So hopefully in the next 6 months, we begin to see Denel moving in an operational direction. But there are parts of Denel, I must point out, that are already and have remained operational, although they don't make a lot of money at this point in time. The one is a partnership with Rheinmetall in the Western Cape. The second is the component called PMP in Denel, which produces ammunition, and that ammunition is world-class in terms of its quality. And to assist that entity from thriving a little better, there's an agreement with, for example, the South African police that they will purchase their ammunition in the future from PMP rather than have that imported. And similarly, Denel Aviation, which services the aircraft of different types for the South African National Defense Force, is also operational as well. So I hope that helps you, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Minister. I want to check from the members whether there is any follow-up or question or clarity seeking questions or any comment from the report that has been presented by the Minister. If I look at the participants, there is no hand that is up. I think, Minister, the members are well certified by your
Chair,
Honorable Dodovo.
Chair, I'm here, and
Okay.
I apologize that I'm in the rural villages of the Northwest, and I apologize that my network is not okay. First, let me welcome the responses from the minister. It is quite good that always when we firstly request ministers to come and appear before us, they do so, and I really want to thank Honorable Pravin Gordhan that he's here this afternoon to share with us the undertakings that were made by both the president, the deputy president, and the deputy minister. Secondly, Honorable Chair, there is no question. The years of state capture have really dealt a serious blow to this country, especially in respect of the SOEs. And it is so painful that we have to deal with all the challenges, problems pertaining to the SOEs. And as the Honorable Minister has rightly pointed out, some of them, like Alexco, collapsing, systemic problems, that SIU has to be called in, and it's not only in respect of that entity. Many entities across the board. Some law enforcement agencies have got to come. SIU has got to come to do investigations, and this seems to be a clear-cut problem that is there that needs to be dealt with. What I'm lacking, and I want the Honorable Minister to correct me, what I'm lacking is a clear-cut way forward, a clear-cut strategy to really go to the bottom of all of these problems and resolve them once and for all, because they do not do good to our country, to our image, and in terms of our endeavors to attend to the triple challenges of unemployment, inequality, and poverty in our country. And again, they dent our governing party in that sense. And say I don't know, I'm wrong, but I don't see clear-cut strategies to, in a once-off way, to deal with this particular problem. And I want Honorable Pravin Gordhan to assure us that systems are in place, structures are in place. There is a clear-cut endeavor to ensure that we address this particular problem, because for me, this is a very, very serious problem, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Dodovo. Honorable Slego.
Chair, good afternoon and good afternoon to the Minister. Minister, I appreciate your presentation in terms of dealing with criminal elements. But I've got a concern in terms of just recently in the Western Cape, I think a month ago, there was a transformer damage in one formal area, and it has to be replaced, and it cost more than 100,000. It was replaced, and after the replacement, there were talks that the formal area needs to protect that transformer, and then the informal areas, there was conflict. And when such things happen in our communities, I become very worried. Now, I'm just wanted to know, like, how often do the department, or in terms of meeting with the law enforcement agencies, and to make sure that these criminal elements, when it comes to izinyoka, where people, use electricity without paying, is dealt with once and for all, because we seem to be losing every day, and it has an impact in terms of our social cohesion when such things happen. I would just want to know whether we'll be able one day to say that, we are dealing with these issues of people, tapping into electricity and not wanting to pay, or maybe shouldn't we consider, doing more in terms of making sure that we get rid of these elements, because they are really dividing our communities. And just, it does not help when we talk and we talk, but we don't seem to get to the crux of the matter in making sure that, all those that needs to be given electricity, actually given electricity, to make sure that we avoid such things. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Sleko. I think there is no hand now. I will hand over to you, Minister Justice, to respond for maybe 2 minutes, because we are having a sitting at 2, maybe to the issues that has been raised by Honorable Sleko, because Honorable Totov was a comment, if I listen to him. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
No, thank you, Chair. Let me cover both very quickly. And there's a slight overlap between the two colleagues as well. In terms of the way forward, generally speaking, we in the process, if you like, of reconstructing these SOEs post the state capture period. And Honorable Daduvu, I think, characterizes the state capture impact absolutely correctly. Is there a clear way forward? For each entity, there is. But generally speaking, in every one of them, firstly, you've got to get the governance right, which we've done approximately in all of them. Secondly, we've got to get the operations right, and that varies, as you heard from me in relation to Denel and Alex Gore, but even the point that Honorable Seleko makes applies to the operations on the ground in certain areas where you have illegal connections, people refusing to accept that meters need to be installed. That will help them as far as prepaying for the usage of electricity as well. The third area flowing from that is financial. And as you know, that's the biggest area of damage arising from state capture. And again, here, each entity has its own problem. Each entity is being addressed in a different way. So you've heard government saying it will take part of Eskom's debt, and it puts in about 23 billion rands a year to enable it to pay its debt and its debt service costs. On the other hand, an allocation has just been made to solve the problems in Denel. And if you take SAA, we've agreed that government must become a minority shareholder, and the operating cash must come from the private sector partner. So in each of these cases, there's going to be a different financial solution. The fourth point is the business model, and that changes depending on the circumstances that we find ourselves in. So the electricity model around the world is changing. The logistics model around the world is changing. And so each of these entities, as they are undertaking reconstruction, will also have to adapt their business models to a new set of circumstances. On the question of dealing with these criminals, I think we've also got to bring the community on board. And issues like payment for services, generally speaking, but electricity in particular, has been a problem that's been with us for a couple of decades now. And we don't have an answer, because the expectation of some of our people is that they should get it free of charge, and yet others will be willing to pay for electricity, and yet others will engage in illegal activity like connections being made to transformers, and then the transformers explode because of the overloading. The transformers get replaced, but then we have the repeat of the problem itself. And in some instances, transformers are stolen as well by people from the community. So this is going to take some time, because you've got to change the culture amongst different communities. And as they become better settled, they will have access to electricity. They will have access to the free basic services that is offered by government as well. Do meetings take place with law enforcement agencies? Each of the entities, Chairperson, will be doing that to advance the cases that they've identified and for which they've opened charge sheets or lodged charges at various police stations across the world. But they do, I mean, across the country. They do meet with the NPA, they do meet with SIU, they do meet with the Hawks. And as you can see, there's some progress in this regard, but there's still amongst some of the criminals that were involved in state capture, there's this mindset of impunity. You can't touch me, I'm going to carry on doing what I'm doing, or I will encourage others to cause the kind of damage that will result in the institution not working. And then it has, as Honorable Dodu pointed out, implications for the political situation in the country as well. So once again, thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister, and thank you for your response. And we want to thank you, Minister, as you already tabled your progress report. You also outlined some other issues like Gusile Power Station. You gave us more clarity on the issues of Eskom. We want to appreciate your presence, and we can release you on the meeting. We appreciate you for making the time to meet with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to the honorable members.
Okay. Honorable members, we've got one set of minutes. I don't know whether must we adopt that set of minutes, then we can be done, I think, in 3 minutes time. The minutes that for the meeting that was on the 13th of October. Hope the honorable members did go through the minutes as well. We're adopting some minutes and other reports. I don't know when, while we're reading the minutes, there is any correction or amendment, maybe something that is not on those minutes. I want to hear from the members that we can adopt the minutes and close our meeting. Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I've been through the minutes and I want to propose that we adopt it.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh.
I move.
Oh, Honorable Mzamai move. Oh, we adopted the minutes. Honorable Sheikh move and Honorable Mzamai seconded. We thank you, honorable members. Our meeting is adjourned that we can join the plenary on time. Thank you for your availability. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chairperson. And apologies. I think there was a problem with the link.
No, yeah, it was a problem. Kaniso was having a problem with the network. It was slow. So he was failing to admit us. I did apologize earlier on.
So sorry, Chair. That's why I arrived late.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mzamai.